Hey, have you ever thought about how the Civil War's early battles shaped the whole conflict?
Yeah.
I was reading about the Battle of Wilson's Creek, and it's just so pivotal.
Oh, absolutely. That's the one in Missouri, right?
Exactly. Missouri was such a hotbed of tension back then. Even though
Right.
it was a Union state, the citizens were totally split in their loyalties.
Yeah. It's wild to think about neighbors literally on opposite sides.
Yeah, and this division led to one of the first major battles west of the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
On August 10th, 1861, the hills near Wilson's Creek became the stage for this brutal confrontation.
So what kicked it all off?
Well, Union Brigadier General Nathaniel Lyon, he was a fierce advocate for keeping Missouri in the Union, was aggressively pursuing Confederate sympathizing forces. These were led by Major General Sterling Price and Confederate Brigadier General Benjamin McCulloch.
Oh, so Lyon was really pushing the envelope?
Exactly. He got intel that the enemy was camped near Wilson's Creek just outside Springfield.
Right.
So he devises this bold plan for a surprise attack at dawn.
Classic move.
Yeah, but here's where it gets interesting. He splits his 5,400 men into two columns, one led by himself attacking from the north and the other by Colonel Franz Sigel swinging around to attack from the south. They hoped to catch the Confederates off guard with this two-pronged assault.
Did it work?
Initially, yeah. In the pre-dawn hours, Union troops crept toward the Confederate camp. As the sun rose, Lyon's forces opened fire, sending the sleeping Confederates into chaos.
Yeah.
But despite the surprise, the Confederates quickly rallied.
Wow, they must have been resilient.
Oh, definitely. Fierce fighting erupted across the hills and fields. The main action took place on what's now called Bloody Hill.
Right.
The Union forces held their ground, repelling repeated Confederate attacks.
And what about Sigel's column?
So Sigel's southern flank initially met with success. They even routed part of the Confederate camp.
Yeah.
But then miscommunication struck. They mistook approaching Confederate reinforcements for retreating Union soldiers.
Oh no, that's a critical mistake.
Absolutely disastrous. They hesitated, and the Confederates seized the moment, launching a counterattack that shattered Sigel's forces, forcing them to retreat in disarray.
Right.
It was a turning point.
That's intense. So, back on Bloody Hill, things were still raging?
Yeah, Lyon's men were under relentless pressure. The Confederates, boosted by their success against Sigel, launched wave after wave of assaults.
I've heard Lyon was actually killed in this battle?
Yes, that's right. He was leading from the front and was struck multiple times.
Yeah.
Sadly, he was killed while rallying his troops, the first Union general to die in the Civil War.
That's a huge blow to the Union morale.
It was. His death sent shockwaves through the ranks, but the fighting continued. For hours, both sides exchanged gunfire without a decisive advantage. Eventually, with supplies low and
Right.
soldiers exhausted, the Union began to withdraw.
Did the Confederates chase them?
Surprisingly, no. The Confederates were equally battered and disorganized. They didn't pursue, and so the battle ended.
The casualties must have been huge.
They were staggering, especially for such an early battle. Over 1,300 Union soldiers and more than 1,200 Confederates were dead or wounded.
Yeah.
Though the Confederates technically won by forcing the Union to retreat, they couldn't capitalize on it.
So what was the bigger impact of this battle?
Well, it proved that the Civil War wasn't going to be a short conflict.
Right.
It showed the ferocity of fighting to come and foreshadowed brutal campaigns in the Western theater.
And Missouri remained divided after that, didn't it?
Exactly. Missouri stayed a contested battleground for the rest of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Guerrilla warfare, raids, and bloodshed continued for years.
It's kind of like the battle set the tone for the whole region.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
The soldiers who fought there would forever remember those hills as a place of courage, loss, and unrelenting struggle.
Were there other significant battles in Missouri after that?
Oh, definitely. Following Wilson's Creek, there was the Battle of Lexington in September 1861, also known as the Siege of Lexington. The Confederates laid siege to Union forces and eventually compelled a surrender.
So the Confederates were gaining ground then?
For a time, yes. But the war was so fluid. Each skirmish contributed to the evolving conflict, with victories and defeats on both sides.
It's interesting how these early battles aren't as well known.
I know, right? Then in October 1861, there was the Battle of Ball's Bluff in Virginia.
Yeah.
It further highlighted the need for strategic adjustments by both armies.
Wasn't that the one with the tragic Union defeat?
Exactly. It was a small but significant clash near Leesburg.
Right.
It showed how unprepared both sides were in some respects.
And didn't the conflict spread even further west?
Yes. In December 1861, the Battle of Chustanahala took place in what's now Oklahoma. It involved Native American tribes allied with the Confederacy against Union forces.
That's a piece of history that often gets overlooked.
Absolutely. It illustrates how widespread and diverse the involvement was in the Civil War.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the main battlefields we often hear about.
It's sobering to think how the war affected so many different communities.
It really is. As 1861 came to a close, the nation was deeply embroiled in a war stretching far and wide. Those early battles were just the prelude to more expansive and costly engagements to come.
You know, it's important to remember these early conflicts to fully understand the war's progression.
Exactly. And how each battle, no matter the size, impacted the course of history. It's like pieces of a puzzle coming together.
Well, thanks for shedding light on this. I feel like I've got a better grasp of the early Civil War now.
Glad to hear that. It's always fascinating to delve into these pivotal moments that shaped our nation's history.
Absolutely. Maybe next time we can talk about how these early battles influenced the later strategies.
That sounds great. There's so much more to explore.
Can't wait for our next chat.